Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and others. Today, you find us three weary travelers on a never-ending dirt road that is on the border between greatness and absolute garbage. A pilgrimage that all great fans of anime should one day travel down. But today, it is our turn. I'm Tristan.
I'm Miles.
And I'm Geoff.
And this is our quest for the best. To start off this episode, gentlemen, let us begin with our question of the week. And this week, the question comes from Austin in Seattle, who asks, what is the last anime that made you cry?
I got a feeling our answer is going to be the same, for all of us.
It might be, because, you know, we all watch the same sorts of things that air, and,
No, it's because there's only one thing that's really, truly beautiful that's come out this year.
That's not true.
Truly beautiful, truly all-time beautiful.
I mean, Zenshu got me pretty close.
Okay.
Nah.
But no, I think...
Do you have something so beautiful that you would stop your carriage in order to get out and watch the sunrise?
Yeah.
Because that's how beautiful the sunrise is. It's an orb reference, but...
So the funny thing is, we did not talk about this beforehand, but we all know it's Orb. Yeah. It's Orb. It has to be Orb. It has to be Orb because Orb makes me cry every other episode, even if I'm not sad, just because of the beauty of the world and the beauty of scientific discovery. But what made me cry about Orb the most recently was I found out the author is 29 years old.
Whoa!
Like 29 currently or 29 at time of writing?
They were born in 1997?
Wow.
Oh, 28, no!
What the hell? What?
So Orb, we all cried at Orb, I think. I think that's the most recent for all of us. Maybe it's Frieren for me because, we rewatched Frieren recently for the pod. But,
Frieren definitely got some tears out. But
I didn't actually cry during Frieren, which is hilarious considering that it's my number one. And normally...
Fake Frieren fan.
I know, I'm a fake Frieren fan. And normally my number ones have that reaction from me. But no, I only have so many times that it's ever actually happened, to the point that I remember most of them. I don't cry every season. I barely cry every year. Orb worked. And I think more recently to that would have been 2 or 3 years ago at this point. Whenever the second season of Made in Abyss dropped.
Wow. So if something makes you cry, it's Alzheimer's status automatically, whereas I cry for literally anything that means something.
Yeah. Well, there are exceptions. There has at least been twice where I've cried and it was like an angry cry of how dare you. And that was for Your Lie and also for Angel Beats. Both of those were how dare you cries. Especially Angel Beats. I was crying and I was just like, this is bull. This should not be happening. I don't understand why there is an emotional attachment or anything here because there shouldn't be. It's not good. But
that's that's the one halfway decent thing that guy's written. Angel Beats. It
was so good he had to go back and actually make the visual novel after the fact.
Yeah, no, I will stand by. What's the name of the writer? I'm blanking.
Key?
Jun Mueda.
Yeah, Jun Mueda. There we go.
Yeah. He's good at bringing out the emotions, but I would say, Angel Beats is easily his best work. You know,
disagree hard.
Yeah, why? Why do you say that? The reason why Tristan's mad crying about it is because it's emotionally manipulative in a way that is not earned, which is why. And the thing is, I probably cried during it. I don't remember. That was a while ago. Watch it when it came out. Would never touch it again since because it is of I love PA Works. I will watch anything that is PA Works made because that team has so much very positive creative energy behind everything they do. And they make things that are very heartfelt and endearing to me, which normally you can't attribute so much of a studio's work to the studio, but the studio ethos seeps into their work in a way that I really like. They do a lot of local tourism things. They do a lot of very personal, introspective stories that I like. There's a editorial voice to PA Works that I think I have not imposed too much. I'm not extrapolating. I'm not turning them into a human being in my mind too much, but they do a good job of selecting the titles they work on and making their own originals. Angel Beats is a very good example of like the PA works house style in action, and it is fine. It is emotionally exploitative to its viewers. It abuses us for our tears to keep us watching, and it works, but it's just fine. And I also felt dirty crying to Angel Beats, probably.
Well, because here's my perspective. So I went into Angel Beats after already seeing the tri-trilogy of Kyoto Annie adaptations of Air, Canon, and Clan Ad, and like comparing to me Angel Beats and Clan Ad as a whole, Clan Ad beats it hands down every single time. I'll even say that it beats it with just season 1 of Clan Ad. Like, I'm not even touching After Story, which is a completely different thing. I'm not even touching the OVAs that go down different story routes. Totally different thing. I cried on all of that. Mm-hmm. And I would probably rather rewatch all of that, any part of it, than Angel Beats.
I'd rather rewatch Charlotte.
That's ridiculous. Charlotte is... I'm
not saying Charlotte's better. It's certainly worse, but Charlotte is much more entertaining to me. And I don't feel used like I do with Angel Beats, which is why, yeah, sure, you can cry to it. Like, I understand that. But also, I'd rather cry to things like Orb.
Oh, yeah.
It is so incredibly good. And the reason why the author being born in 97 is so staggering to me is because of the wealth of life represented in the show. Like, it feels like it is so... like the amount of wisdom that the author puts into those characters, like that is so clearly understood. Orb understands humans and how we work and how we think and what inspires us on a level that, Bakuman wishes, right? Like the creativity of human beings and the beauty of creation, the beauty of learning, the beauty of the motion of the heavens.
Don't you mean the movements of the earth?
It all moves. We know this now. But yes. I have 2 little boys. They're 5 and 3 at the time of that we're talking now.
Yeah.
Because they always change. They change so fast in terms of their age. It's crazy. I'm like, yeah, no, but
yeah.
They love the planets. They're both obsessed with the planets. My 3-year-old can name more moons of Jupiter than I can, and I'll check up and I'm like, no, that actually is a moon of Jupiter. How do you know all this? You're 3 years old, but they're obsessed with the planets. They keep drawing the solar system over and over and over again, and so like their love of planets came at the same time Orb started, and so now my whole life is planets. We go out with the telescope and look at the planets. And I feel like, I'm doing some Orb stuff right now.
I mean, you're not doing Orb stuff unless you're freeballing your planetary observations.
I am no Oxy. I cannot do that.
Did you watch Orb with your 3-year-old?
No.
Okay.
That's a little, that would be a little heavy.
Just a bit.
No, I definitely agree. Like the Orb is a very profound work. And I think that a lot of that, like, understanding of humanity and the wisdom that comes through in it is reflected wisdom. Because a lot of what it's about, when it's not about, science and discovery and the persistence of truth in the face of oppression and all of that good stuff, is it's about the ability or the miracle of writing. And how incredible it is that humanity can pass down knowledge and ideas and emotions through the generations through what we write down, right? So I think that
books are important.
I think the author is a big reader and has read like across a lot of different cultures. That would be where I would think that knowledge of humanity and human nature comes from. Man, you guys said some mean stuff about Angel Beats, and I don't want to like defend it too hard because I fundamentally I do think Jun Maeda is like a bit of a hack when he's not working with other people.
What?
A little bit.
No.
You were just calling him a hack. You were just saying that he emotionally manipulates in all of his scripts.
I don't necessarily know if I would go as far as calling him a hack, but I can definitely say that, like, the period of time in which I have fallen in love with his work has long since passed.
Yeah.
Since passed.
I think that when he's working with Key on the visual novels, it's one thing, because there's like a lot of different inputs on those scripts. And even if he's the lead writer, he gets, there's some editorial voice. There's some other balancing factors that make Aaron Clannad a little stronger. But like, if I was comparing Angel Beats, The Day I Became a God, and Charlotte, I'd take Angel Beats every time, man. It's got that.
Angel Beats just feels like the first draft of a visual novel, which is fitting because then they made the visual novel after the fact.
It does, but it's got that. It's got a very interesting interpretation of the afterlife. And like the plot twists are predictable, but like,
except for the stupidest one that's only not predictable because of how dumb it is.
Yeah, but the other ones are like they're predictable, I guess, because it's going for the obvious thing that's going to hurt the audience the most every time.
Yeah. Charlotte undermines that expectation a little bit,
but Charlotte also sucks.
Yeah, but here's the thing with all these works is that I do think that they are a little, what's a good word for it? I would even say this broadly of the Key works is that they are all written from a place that does not feel like it has the same kind of life experience as the author of Orb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it feels like the complete opposite. And so both ends of that spectrum can make me cry very easily. One side, I feel inspired and ready to live life after I'm done crying, even if I'm sad. And the other end of it, the Jumaida.
I
feel dirty.
You saying that kind of hits me with why I think Angel Beats is his best work. And the reason for that is because Angel Beats is written from the perspective of a bunch of people who died in high school.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. Yeah, that is.
But like that, it's the truest expression of his like kind of experience and the emotions that he taps into well as an artist. And like, I'd compare.
Maybe that's why I've dropped off, because it's like I don't think I've liked his work since high school.
Yeah,
because I was in high school when After Story aired, or I was just leaving high school, something around there.
That might also be it, because I watched Angel Beats in high school and I watched the other stuff after high school.
So also you watched Angel Beats first.
Yeah. So
that changes things. That actually changes a lot of things. No, because here's the thing. I kind of look at his work now and I feel like he's almost kind of like the M. Night Shyamalan, except instead of the stupid twist, it's still a stupid twist, but instead of blowing your mind trying to twist, it's we're going to try and make you cry, try and twist. It's like you have to go into his work now being like, all right, he's going to try and pull something to make you cry. That's the thing. That's kind of the expectation you have.
Yeah, that's kind of. So I had a chance to talk to Mari Okada once at Anime Expo, and I asked her like, how do you go about creating stories that'll make people cry? And she kind of like looked at me like I had a bug head all of a sudden. She was like, what do you mean? I don't do that. I just, try to write stories that are like true to life, I'm kind of paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact but
that
like
sounds like what you would say. Yeah.
So she writes some of the stuff that has made me cry the hardest in my entire life.
Yes.
Like Makia, Anohana, Iron-Blooded Orphans.
She's good at that.
But she never feels like manipulative with it, because
it doesn't feel like it's a trope with her. It's just, it's a consequence of her writing. So like how you're trying to explain it, like you ask her the question of like, how do you do that? And then she sounds confused because That's not what she's intending to do. It's a consequence of her writing more than it is her actively trying to be like, okay, no, this is when the audience needs to cry or something like that. She's not trying to make the audience feel anything. She's more so trying to write a story that just happens to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah. And Jun Maeda, he's like learned a bunch of tricks that can get tears out of people, and he like precision targets them. And like, you know, Orb's a great example of the Okada approach. I mean, not the Okada approach, because it's obviously a different writer's approach, but of like finding things that are true in the human experience. And like, I mean, sometimes most of Orb, when you're crying, it's at the beauty of things and not necessarily at the tragic moments.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because like the biggest pain points for the characters, except, I mean, ironically, the one point that like I was really got super emotional for the plight of a character, is the character you'd think would be the least sympathetic in the entire story.
I know what you're talking about.
When he goes through shit. We'll talk about this when we talk about Orb.
You mentioned Mario Okada. Mario Okada is basically the easiest way to make me cry is to make me watch any Mario Okada written work ever. And you had mentioned Makia, which is the only piece of media in my life that I spent more time crying than not while watching. I think I cried for the second half of that movie. I think for each of the first 3 times I watched that movie. Like, almost nonstop. Like, the first 2 times were in the theater, too. And so I'm just there, like, with my wife or with Quack, just, like, bawling my eyes out in front of strangers.
Sorry, Quack.
And it's such a strange experience to be that vulnerable in public. Like, that is not something that I'm, like, jazzed to do. Not just, like, forget the masculinity. Like, crying in public is a weird thing to do. It happens, like, and I try and be respectful when it happens, like, but when someone's feeling that much emotions, like, you want to give them some space, but when you're jam-packed in the theater, which it was happy to be jam-packed for Makia both times, it feels weird, but you can't help yourself. It almost makes it worse. It makes you cry a little bit more to know that you're just unable to control everything inside. What a beautiful movie.
But I mean, I think that's something powerful more people should experience, you know, like I was lucky enough to see the Anohana movie. Yeah, I think experiencing that kind of public vulnerability in a safe space like a movie theater is a valuable human experience. That if more people had it, would probably make the world a better place. I don't want to be too schmaltzy there, but like I think we need more people who are willing to just be vulnerable in public for a little bit in a shared space where you know that other people are almost certainly experiencing the same thing. Because like in the case of Makia, how can you not? In the case of Anohana, how can you not? So I'm actually like working on a small video right now on short sad anime to ruin your weekend.
Probably would have fit much more for a Valentine's Day video, huh?
No, that would be that's the best anime love stories, you know. And it was kind of a like sort of a last minute decision to do this video instead of the much longer one that I was going to work on. But you know, we got big plans, and I don't want to spend too much time on a video right before the big plans. But yeah, like I mean, you know, Anohana's front and center there. Another one that really hit. Also, Violet Evergarden, I think.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Violet Evergarden and Plastic Memories. I have kind of both in there because they're both, I think, very similar structurally in that they're a vehicle for like really, really bum you out short stories that then connect into like the most brutal emotional gut punch.
Plastic Memories is one where I felt like I was really questioning if it deserved me crying. Like, I kind of felt a little foolish for caring so much about those characters.
It's definitely the more emotionally manipulative example of that formula.
I haven't even watched Plastic Memories, so I can't comment.
Wow. I still think it's good. I think it's like there's something missing there. I think you're right on that. But like, it had me crying in episode 1.
That's a pretty good sign. I mean, if you have 23 minutes to tell a story and you're able to evoke that level of emotion out of anybody, and this is why Orb is great, because even when like we're introduced to new characters, I'm like, why do I care about these characters? And then within 20 minutes, I'm like sobbing on the Stairmaster.
No,
I'm like, I can't tell if it's sweat or tears as I'm watching. Like,
why not both?
I'm looking up at the cosmos, thinking, wow, these are the same stars that they were looking at.
Oh man,
and they're not even real.
I'm glad you had that realization.
Yeah, I just kind of want to hit on the sort of Plastic Memories and Violet Evergarden divide there, right? Because Plastic Memories made me cry in the first episode, and you're right, that is a strong case for like good writing, but it's also like it hits you with like a grandma who doesn't want to see her child die. Right? It's like, it's going for some very, very primal stuff. It does almost feel like it's cheating. But at the same time, like, I don't know, I do think that require actually evoking the emotions, even if you're going for something cheap like that, right? In 23 minutes while also introducing the main characters, you kind of have to go for something cheap to get that emotional punch in that time. I mean, it's juggling a lot of plates, right? Like,
I definitely think that's fair, but also I'd still rather not cry in the first episode than be manipulated in that way.
Yeah, and I mean, that's Violet Evergarden doesn't get you crying in episode 1, but probably, but it like builds there until like every episode is doing it to you, pretty much. And you know, like,
I mean, I can only really think of one time that a show has ever gotten me in episode 1, and then I ended up dropping it. So I don't really know if that's like...
You didn't cry episode 1 of Freerun?
Oh yeah, Freerun got me episode 1.
Freerun got me a real good episode. That's a double episode.
Like, as I mentioned, I don't think Freerun actually got me at any point in time. Like, not to that level. Like, I guess I'm just the fake Freerun fan who puts it as my number 1, but...
Fake Freerun fan, Tristan.
Freerun got me when I was reading the manga.
Freerun got me rewatching an episode for the podcast that I'd already watched twice before.
Yeah.
In the course of a year.
Was it the
flower
old
episode?
Man? Oh, okay.
We talked about this.
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah.
It's on the cast.
Yeah.
It's on the pod.
Okay. It's on the pod.
And now we're going to go into our side quest. Yeah. What are we calling it again?
This is a skill check.
How well can you roll the dice? Are your stats good enough?
No.
Today's side quest is a skill check. And today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite kind of anime, Isekai.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
So, Geoff, Tristan, neither of you know what's coming. You don't know the format of this, other than I said questions. I would have questions. There's some trivia related things. I need both of you to grab a pen and paper.
A pen and paper?
Okay.
Or anything to write with that is not clickety-clackety. Tristan, that was inconsiderate and rude.
So, I'm going into this with the full knowledge that I will fail at whatever it is. I'm very bad at on-the-spot trivia.
And I am something of a Isekai garbage encyclopedia.
Which is why, for our first question, I'd love to ask you to write down the name of an Isekai that is more than 10 words and not get a single word incorrect.
Ooh. That's,
Now, this is good listening, so I'm going to be talking while y'all are thinking about this. I'm going to be talking about one that I don't think either of them are going to try, which is called World End. World End, also known as Suka Suka. What are you doing at the end of the world? Oh my god, I forgot it. I worked on this title. What are you doing at the end of the world?
I'm going to take out my headphones so that I can think.
Will you save us, please? Will you save us is the last sentence. It's 3 sentences, though, for the astute listeners at home. you may not know this, but a lot of isekai come from one or two different, mostly one, different
I got 10.
web novel
exactly
websites. 10. Ooh, well, then you're doing the one I probably thought of.
Okay, I got mine.
All
right.
I got exactly 10 words.
I also have exactly 10 words. We might have the same title.
Let's all say it at the same time.
Oh, that's going to sound terrible. But
set.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Ready, set.
Ascendance of a bookworm. I'll do anything to become a librarian.
Ooh, with the subtitle. That's good. I got reborn as a vending machine. Now I wander the labyrinth.
Ooh. I think both of those are 100% correct. I will have our producer double check as we move on to question 2, but it looks like both of you all stop at nothing to become a librarian. Oh.
That's cheating. You can't do that, Tristan.
Why not?
You had that within eyesight. That is inappropriate. You're just holding up the light novel like that?
It's right here. I have it right here. You're like, what's an isekai title that's 10 words? I'm like, well, it's right there.
I did that shit off the top of my head.
I'm very impressed, Geoff. Reborn as a vending machine, now I wander the dungeon. That is what he said, I think.
Yeah.
No, he wanders the labyrinth is what.
Yeah, I said
Geoff
now he wanders the lab. Now I wander the labyrinth. Did I get that wrong?
Maybe. It looks like it.
Oh well.
Oh my goodness. So Tristan wins by cheating. I see. Wow. All right. Our second question. I would love to hear 3 Western isekai titles made before 1900. 3 isekai titles.
Made before 1900?
Wait, 1900?
1900. 125 years ago.
Wait.
Easy peasy.
As in made, as in you mean like actually written before or set in?
Written before. Give me some proto-isekai.
Well, I'm going to fail this one because my mind's drawing an absolute blank.
All right, do you want to take this, Geoff? You don't have to write it out.
Give me a sec.
Tristan's given up.
I've got a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court.
There's one.
Alice in Wonderland.
There's 2.
The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Thank you very much. Guru Gamesh. That's right. I would have also accepted the Time Machine or quite a few other things.
Okay, so I mixed up I Wander Through the Labyrinth, which is the light novel title, and Now I Wander the Dungeon, which is the anime
there
title.
We go.
So I got 2
I'll still
wires
give it to
crossed.
you. I'll still give it to you. Yeah. The thing is, I had this thing where when I was working at Crunchyroll, I was giving away like t-shirts or something at the booth for anyone who could tell me the full title of Danmachi without missing a word. And I gave away very few t-shirts that day, even of people wearing Danmachi merch. So we haven't done enough Western IP, so I'd like to know one English language original novel written before the Great War, or before World War II, let's do.
Okay.
That got adapted into an anime.
Oh.
English language, there are 2 options that I know of.
English language that was written before World War II?
Written before World War II.
Okay.
Adapted into an anime.
Yeah, there have been OVA adaptations of Alice in Wonderland. There were a couple anime movies, actually. There were movies of Alice. An anime of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine would rip, but I don't think that
would
there
be
has been one.
That would be very cool.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there had been things close to it, but not a direct actual adaptation of.
So I know of the Alice in Wonderland movie, but
I'll give you that.
I already answered Alice in Wonderland for my last thing, so that feels like cheating.
A little bit.
Let me try to. What's the other one?
We've talked about one of them, maybe even both of them, between the 3 of us.
If only my memory wasn't absolute shit.
Tristan is trying to outswear you today, Geoff.
I'm really not.
So what's the other one? I can't do it.
I'm looking for either Peter Pan or Wizard of Oz.
Oh, there's a Wizard of Oz one. That's right. Okay.
We've talked about the Wizard of Oz. There's both a OVA and a movie for Wizard of Oz, and there's a TV series for Peter Pan, I believe.
See, that one I didn't know. I didn't know that there was an anime Peter Pan. It doesn't surprise me, but...
And see, this is why Sungwon was always destined to be an anime guy, because he grew up loving isekai.
Yeah.
Sung Won-cho famously can recite the movie Peter Pan from any moment at a moment's notice. It is an incredible party trick. All right. The next question for you all.
Okay.
This is only an isekai, again, more popularly or culturally. It's not textually an isekai, but I'll give it the title.
Okay.
In Sword Art Online.
Oh, boy.
Geoff,
I would argue that it is an isekai, because the other world is given, like, even if it's digitally created, the other world is given.
It's still another world.
Like weight and stakes that matter outside of reality and also within reality.
What's the
you heard
question?
it here first. Death of the author, says Geoff Thew, professional S-bag. All right. What is the slur used for Kirito? You can just say it.
Beater.
I can't believe you said it. What does that mean? What does beater mean?
That means he's a beta cheater.
A beta player and a cheater. Oh my goodness. All right. In the first, what I would consider traditional isekai, which is, of course, as you both know, one of the greatest anime of all time, or a battler done by. How does Shozama get isekai'd?
You're asking me to recall a show that I have watched literal over a decade ago. And even then, I don't even think I was that into it at the time.
That's called trivia, Tristan.
I know.
I mean, I know it's a motorcycle accident in the other Byston Well Monogatari.
It is motorcycle related.
Okay.
I'll give you the point for that. Shozama does a sweet trick on his motorcycle, and when he lands in the world of Byston Wells.
God, I love Tomino. He's just so much style.
Speaking of unbelievably sharp swords, for our next question, what is the most recent adaptation or recent anime release set in the world of Byston Wells?
Is it Garzy's Wing?
It's not Garzy's Wing.
It can't be Garzy's Wing. I know there has to be something more recent than that. I just can't think of it.
I don't know either.
Now I'm double checking that I'm not crazy.
You might be crazy. I mean, if it turns out to be Garzy's Wing, well, whatever.
No, it's not Garzy's Wing. It's, oh my goodness. I wrote these questions down, you realize, and
yes.
I didn't put the answers because I was so confident in my ability to remember all of them.
Well, now you know better, right?
Well, no, I will probably make this mistake again many times. The Wings of Reen.
Oh! When did that come out?
Like 2005?
Oh.
I have shown... No, I haven't shown you guys that one. But
no, you have not.
In my monumental article written for Anime News Network about Isekai, it's a great article. You should read it, only 6,000 words. It takes you 45 minutes to read if you're a fast reader. What percentage of anime did I say, TV anime in 2024, would fall into the category of Isekai?
Oh,
weren't you like, for 2024, weren't you like 35% or something around there?
No.
Thank goodness we are not at that point yet.
I only remember it was higher than I was expecting it to be.
It would be, if I remember correctly, because I did this as a joke. So I don't remember your article, but I do remember I did this as a joke for a video. So I would just have to recall how many total anime there were last year. It was over 200 for sure.
Nobody said there'd be math.
And the question is, are we counting reverse isekai?
Yes.
Okay. In that case, they made 40 isekai. That's as many as 410s, and that's terrible. And that would be about 18%, 17%, somewhere around there.
Very good. It's 15%.
Hey.
That was really impressive, Geoff.
That's what you get from watching every trash anime every year. Why do I do this to myself?
In fairness, Tristan is also one of the few unfortunate souls who tries every anime.
Yeah. Tristan doesn't catalog all of the isekai.
Not specifically, no. I am very much, I watch the episode, write a thing, watch more if I feel like I need to. Otherwise, it's dropped and I forget about it instantly.
Yeah, but you still watch a lot of Isekai, Tristan.
I do. I'm not saying I don't.
Anybody who watches seasonals does.
Our last question today.
Okay.
Is solo leveling an Isekai?
That's a really difficult philosophical question.
No, not a philosophical question. I could say that there's an argument that it's a reverse isekai.
I mean, I guess for his dad.
Not for our main character, of course, but for a lot of the demons that he runs into.
Yeah,
they're from other worlds, and they're getting dropped into this place,
but
controlled by this computer more. What's it?
They're actually not from other worlds because their memories are created when they're instanced within the dungeon. So that's kind of the thing, right? I would say it's not. I would argue that it is not isekai because it's more like the system is creating parallel pocket dimensions temporarily,
Like little bubble worlds.
But they are interconnected. So yes, it's very
it's debatable.
Yeah, they are interconnected, but they are also instanced to the demands of the system. Sort of is my final answer.
I'll take it. Tristan, where do you end on this?
If it's not reverse because of the arguments that Geoff was making, then I would lean towards no.
Just because in your heart of hearts, you know, it doesn't jive isekai.
I mean, it like from I could see it from a genre perspective, but from an actual technical perspective, no. It has a lot of the same like genre tropes that isekai is well known for. It pulls a lot of the same sort of shortcuts narratively, you know, like that we're used to. But
isn't that the purpose of isekai, to give us shortcuts in our storytelling?
Well, I mean that's more progression fantasy, right? Like it's tapping into the same well of progression fantasy and genre,
like,
and lit RPG stuff.
That's why I get so hype when Frieren learns that spell to make something into a snow cone. I'm like, yeah, she got new power-up snow cones.
But like, unless there is an argument to be made that every character in Solo Leveling was once part of our world, and then the new world is the world that they live in that has been branched off into a different alternate dimension because of all of the gates and all this other wonderful junk. But I feel like that's getting far too in the weeds, so I'd still be leaning towards no.
Yeah.
So I also lean towards no, to be fair, because for an isekai, you need characters to get trapped in another world, and there are no characters in Solo Leveling.
Boom! I don't. So that's the thing. You don't need to be trapped in another world. There just needs to be like the other world needs to be meaningfully there.
I mean, there are plenty of isekai where the main character can freely jump between the other world and their home world, and it's still an isekai.
Digimon Adventure 2, classic example.
Fair.
Classic in every sense of the word. In Aura Battler Dunbine, they go to Texas, you know?
Shangri-La Frontier, they can log in and out of the game.
Well, that's not an isekai.
It's not.
No, it is. I would argue that it is, because the NPCs are completely sentient, and they have life or death stakes only for the NPCs, but they are sentient. So it's in the same category as SAO.
Me playing Dwarf Fortress is an isekai.
They don't actually think. You don't have a bunny who,
oh my goodness,
becomes your friend in Dwarf Fortress.
Are you telling me my friends in Dwarf Fortress are not real? I'm such a good keeper of the dwarves. So thank you, gentlemen, for playing our first ever skill check side quest.
Yeah.
The winner, of course. I mean, Geoff won the most questions, but I think that means that he loses in the game of life. So, thank you both for playing. That's the skill check, but it's one of those skill checks where you're like, did I really want to?
Did you really win?
I really didn't like that dialogue option. That was kind of, is this who I have become?
Now we're moving on to our main quest of the week, which is the one that I got to pick for all of us. We've each been going through one of our all-time favorite anime to sort of set a baseline for our discussions moving forward. And I decided to pick one that's not my favorite anime now, but was my favorite anime up until I saw Anohana, I think. Which is Baccano. I had the DVD of Baccano when I was a teenager, and I wore that out.
That's not how DVDs work, Geoff.
I know! It's a metaphor.
It's not how they work.
They don't wear out, they rot.
That's grossly overstated.
I wore out the plastic and
in the middle.
Cardboard on my thin pack Baccano collection from taking it in and out over and over again. Baccano holds a very special place in my heart. And for those of you who don't know what Baccano is, because not only is it old, Not quite as old as Pat Labor 2, but it's that mid 2000s vintage of anime that doesn't get talked about enough by old taku or young taku.
What about mid taku?
Mid taku. I guess it is mid taku. Oh God,
new podcast name.
It's hard for people to watch Baccano these days because it's not on any streaming platform that I know of except for Fandango.
Curse you, Aniplex!
Yeah, screw Aniplex. For real.
Aniplex.
And yeah, so the only way to watch it is to get the Blu-ray or the DVD. Most likely the DVD because the Blu-ray was an extremely limited run. There's not a real difference because the Blu-ray is a upscale.
Is it just it's an upscale. Ugh.
It's a digital anime. Of course it's an upscale.
Unfortunate.
It's a pretty damn good upscale. Like it's a high quality upscale. But it's so you either watch the Blu-ray or the DVD, or you go another way.
Or you buy episodes for $2 a pop on YouTube or Amazon.
Can you buy episodes on Amazon? Okay, well that's good. That's so it is accessible in some form, not a form that the Zoomers of the world will ever
accept
use. But they might do the free version of that. But yeah, no, it's hard to watch, and that's unfortunate because it's an all-time classic. And I suppose I should say what the story of Baccano is,
or at least attempt to.
Yeah, because it's a little difficult to describe. It is set in the 1930s.
Sometimes.
Slightly later in the 1930s and in the 1700s.
For that one episode.
Tells, I mean, there's a little bit of that that peeks into another episode. But yeah, so it's mostly set in the 1930s in 2.5 different time periods.
3.
Yeah, 3.
The anime is really 3. We can get to that.
3. So it's set in the 1930s in Chicago and New York and on a train to New York. And then also a little bit in sort of Midwest gold country.
For a brief moment, yeah.
And then it's also set aboard a boat in the 1700s. And all of these plot points sort of intertwine to tell the story of mysterious immortals and their interactions with the New York Mafia and the Chicago Mafia. It was written by Ryogo Narita, who's also the creator of Durarara and Dead Mount Deathplay, as well as a bunch of other really good manga, light novels, etc. Classic, highly talented writer. And it doesn't really have main characters. It doesn't really.
Oh, that's a discussion. That is a discussion.
Yeah, it has main character-ish characters. It's a very fascinating example of nonlinear storytelling, sort of compounding information that changes your perspective on things. It's before I watched Pulp Fiction, before I watched any other nonlinear story, this was the thing that gave me the taste for that sort of time-bendy storytelling.
Wait, you watched this before?
Yeah, I watched this before Pulp Fiction. I watched this when I was like 13. It was one of the first DVDs I ever bought.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Super formative for me.
He's not old like us, Miles.
No, I know. He's like a year younger than us.
I know.
But that's kind of crazy to think about because that I can't imagine going into Baccano without the context of like not just Quentin Tarantino movies, but also like the Guy Ritchie movies that were riffing off the Tarantino movies.
Did you watch this before Snatcher?
Oh no, I watched Snatch. And Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels first.
Snatcher is the Hideo Kojima.
Kojima game. Sorry.
But yeah, no, I watched Snatch before this. I watched Lock, Stock before this. That was probably it for the Guy Ritchie movies. But like, I was a huge Guy Ritchie head, and then I found Baccano. And so going from one to the other, when I watched the opening for the first time, I'm like, Wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait a second. This is my sensibility.
Definitely playing homage to Snatch. Yeah.
Well, you say that, but then, like, how many movies in the time since this have been inspired by Baccano? Whether they want to admit it or not. Like, basically every movie that's trying to ape the Guy Ritchie style apes Baccano more than they ape Quentin Tarantino, which is so funny to see all these, like, pulpy things stealing from each other because that's what they do in the movies. Ha ha ha.
So the question that I meant to ask at the start, because I was very curious during my rewatch of Baccano for the sake of this podcast, only to find out that neither of you actually did a full rewatch of the whole thing in order to do it. I was going to ask, hey guys, for this rewatch, did you end up watching it in sub or dub? Because I had, up until the last couple of days, I had never watched Baccano in anything other than dub.
Yeah,
because
I watch it dub every time.
I had never watched sub of Baccano before this week.
What?
Like I checked out the subs like for an episode or two once, but like the dub is so peak.
The dub is great. The dub is really, really good.
I would say it might be the greatest dub of all time.
No.
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 Billy Bob Thornton.
It's just no Billy Bob Thornton.
No Billy Bob. That's.
I'm sorry. I know that's an impossible standard, but it is my standard.
No celebrity stunt casting, in other words.
Billy Bob Thornton is not a stunt casting. Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, Billy Bob Thornton was a really good pick. I mean, this is a side tangent, but like out of all the celebrity stunt castings for Ghibli films, Mononoke was the best out of all of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. It like worked the best. But all I'm like, Mononoke is a great dub. I'm just like, Baccano is such a great example of like
localization,
taking advantage of the dub format. It turns already a pretty good period piece into an amazing one with impeccable dialogue.
Well, yeah, that's because you're like, hey, this is supposed to take place in America. We're doing a dub. Now, the dub was done in Texas, but whatever. But like, we have English speakers try and do us New York accents, try and do us Chicago accents, try and do transcontinental accents. Why not? Go nuts.
So I do recommend the dub for most people who are watching this, but I rewatched, I think, 4 or 5 episodes for this. I've seen Baccano more than almost any anime. Like, I rewatched it pretty religiously over the years. I've only watched it once dubbed in full.
Only
and
once?
I went back. Yeah, and I went back this time and I watched half of it in dub and half of it in sub. I still actually prefer the original Japanese voice acting, because I think it's just like, it's perfect. I think the English one is more of a novelty to me, and I find it delightful. So I spent my youth being obsessed with gangsters and especially the 30s era mafia, like the Five Families of New York. I have like tomes and tomes and tomes of all this mafia history. Like, I've read Joseph Bonanno's autobiography. Like, I own first editions of most Mario Puzo books. Like, I got Godfather pilled at like age 12, right?
Mm-hmm. So you watched The Godfather as a kid and it became your entire personality.
Absolutely. No, come on. Let's be serious here. Of course it did. Especially Godfather Part 2 took place partially in Tahoe, which is, where my great uncle lived, until like my great uncle seemed like a mafia type guy. And so I always kind of like feared and respected and liked and hated him. And so he had this big old place on Lake Tahoe, and it just reminded me whenever I went there of like, oh, this is some Godfather stuff going on right now. Well, how to get the money for this? And honestly, I still don't know, and I don't want to know. But the point being, like, this was very much young Miles. This was his jam. And so when I saw an anime at an AMV contest the year it came out, at like Fanime or something, so like maybe a couple months after it came out, I saw an AMV of Baccano during an AMV contest, and I'm like, this is the peanut butter and chocolate of my life. There's my like 1930s American history, mafia nonsense, and anime on a train, on a transcontinental train. What? It is all of my favorite things all at once. And so when I went into it, I thought, there's nothing that can live up to my expectations humanly possible of this anime. And then it did.
And then it did.
Yeah.
And then it did.
So, like, trying to talk about, like, the actual main story of Baccano is very hard because, as Geoff has mentioned, it's non-linear. So much so that episode 1 is the end, virtually. It gets a little iffy there because the light novel, of course, goes beyond the series. There's also 3 episodes of OVA that you can take or miss, with few exceptions.
You need them.
They don't really end the story, and they make a point of that. Because when they bring back the vice president and the little girl, and they're like, hey, what are endings anyway?
Yeah, they kind of continue things and set up a second season that will never happen.
That'll never happen. So largely though, this adaptation of Baccano takes place between 3 timelines that it likes to jump around, also the 1700s. So it takes place in 1930, which is the New York Mafia, and dealing with Salazar Quates. A year later in 31 with everything going on with Flying Pussyfoot going from Chicago to New York, and then very briefly almost could be cut out in some respects depending on how you want to argue it, the quote-unquote search for Dallas Genoud by his younger sister Eve, because he goes missing after the events of the first story plot line, which you don't find out until the very end of the show. You just know that he eventually goes missing.
So to put it in like sort of an elevator pitch summary, because what they are interesting stories, right? And they each grab you in their own way. So the first one is about a young up and comer in a small New York family on his way to become a made man, who gets caught up in some supernatural shenanigans. And also a incredibly stupid attempted heist. And
I mean, anytime any heist that is successful is a good heist. And Isaac and Miria do a lot of really good heists when you think about it.
They do some really good heists.
You remember that time they stole the door off a museum? Such a great heist.
Yeah, they always get something.
They get something.
That intertwines. Yeah, 1931, like you said, where there is a train coming from Chicago to New York, the Flying Pussyfoot, that has a bunch of their friends on it, and also several interested parties trying to rob the train simultaneously.
Yes.
Or hijack it.
Yes.
Or kidnap people.
So many people die.
A lot of people die.
In very gruesome ways. This show is not quiet about its bloodiness or its violence. It is.
Lad Russo laughs a lot and slaughters a lot.
Yes. He's very good at that.
And then the third story is about the untalented fail son of the Genoud family.
I mean, I sometimes feel so bad for Dallas. Because it's like...
I feel bad for Eve.
I feel worse for Eve, because she loves her brother very, very much. It's not her fault that her brother is a piece of garbage.
He doesn't deserve it at all.
I mean, like, anytime that I, like, compare him to, like, that style of, like, delinquent, I don't think he's ever that bad. He just gets caught up in things that really he shouldn't have, and... it just kind of sucks.
But it's all a direct result of his own arrogance and stupidity, though.
No, but no one else suffers like he does in this entire series.
Well, I mean, except for the people that just get shot immediately and die, which does happen a couple of times.
I would argue that they're better off than Dallas Genoud.
Then what happens to Dallas Genoud? Yeah, no, because what happens to him is really not great and really bad.
But yeah, so his kind of interaction... is he's also involved in the first storyline.
Yeah.
With the supernatural stuff going on. And the first scene of the anime, because this is the also important hook, is we see Firo Prochanezo, that now a made man.
Yeah.
The one who's about to become a made man in that first story, get mugged in an alleyway. 3 of his fingers get cut off by a dude with a knife, and then they fly back on, and he socks the dude in the face.
Yep.
And kind of the mystery is like, how did this guy end up immortal? Why are there all these immortals running around New York and Chicago? And all of those questions are eventually answered when we go back to the 1700s.
Yeah, because yes, when we go back to the 1700s, but because we jump around so much, there's always the question of sometimes from very quickly who is immortal and who is not. Because from episode 1 that Firo and the 3 Gandor brothers will eventually become immortal, even when you see them in the older timelines because they get shot up at a bookstore. Which is, I love that scene so much because it's just completely unexpected until it happens and you're like, yeah, no, that's actually what would happen. That's just entirely what would happen. So you have this constant knowledge that the intro episodes give you about who some of the immortal characters are, but it doesn't tell you when it happens or why, because that's not something that's really answered until the end of the show. That's one of the spoilery things that they leave at the very end where they showcase, this is how it happened. So you can see these characters and you're like, are they immortal yet? We don't know. Obviously they're not going to die because we've seen them become immortal. So they're going to live at least until that point, before they get shot up and then they're fine. How the show just loves to show you virtually everything and then be like, you're still going to watch, right? And the answer is yes, because episode 1 is episode 1 tells you the ending of virtually every character, barring 2. It doesn't tell you what happened to Dallas Genowad, because you got to find that one out, because that's a whole side plot of the story. And it doesn't tell you what happens to the character that doesn't get his name in the intro, despite the fact that he really should have.
No, I'm so glad they don't give it to him.
I'm glad they don't. I'm very happy that they don't. I'm very happy that character does not get any necessary. He's in the intro, but he doesn't get a shout out in the intro, and it makes for that particular plot twist halfway through the show that much better, and I love it for it. I just kind of wish that they had an alternate intro past that point where he gets his shout out.
That would be I think that would that would change the pacing, but B, it is appropriate to his character that he isn't
there
out.
But I wish that he got it, and then I also wish for the final 3 OVA episodes that they changed the intro and gave a shout out to Graham Spector, who otherwise, kind of feels a little left out there at the end.
The last 3 episodes are so good because Graham is so much fun.
He is.
But I will say about the opening. So the opening is one of the greatest openings in anime history for a million reasons, in anything history. I love the Snatch one, but honestly, if you watch the Snatch, the Guy Ritchie movie Snatch, that opening sequence, which this is very much a riff on, it is not nearly as strong. It doesn't feel as poppy, and the instrumentals are not nearly as good. My first YouTube video, by the way, was me playing the opening on the saxophone. I think you can still find it somewhere on YouTube.
My first YouTube video was a analytical breakdown of why that riff on Guy Ritchie's Snatch opening is so much better than when Durarara does it.
That is very funny.
Hot take, Baccano is just absolutely better than Durarara in almost every respect.
In every way.
Close. Not even close.
Yeah.
But
which makes it so tragic that Durarara is the one that got 1 million episodes, and Baccano is just this 13 episode slice of perfection.
Well, 16 technically.
Especially considering how much good material they have for Claire Stanfield that never got adapted, but that's a different story for post spoilers. But in the opening sequence, once you get to episode 2 or 3, they'll do last time on Baccano.
Yeah, those transitions are so good.
In the middle of the opening with some slightly different music playing, and then it cuts back into the opening, and it's just ooh, you're oh, this week on Baccano, we're gonna get follow-ups for this.
It works so well because the opening is a jazz song, right? So you just have a little
improv
solo,
a bit,
an improv solo over every every last week episode, and it's just it hits so well. You can have somebody riffing for as long as they need to on the sax or the
I also just love that aspect that I don't see very often, because anime doesn't really do that. They don't do Last Time On, but I love Last Time Ons so much. Well, I also hate them for very similar reasons. I love them because it pretty much tells you, hey, this is what's about to happen. only because it gives you the context of here's what's happened before that's relevant to this episode. And sometimes you're like, why the heck is this relevant? And you're like, you watch the final episode and it gives you a last time on. And one of the clips is a mouse getting hit with a hammer from like episode 1. And you're like, why the heck is that relevant? And then you find out why the heck that's relevant at the very end. And you're like, oh, and it's those moments that I just love.
Like the other funny thing is sometimes it reminds you of stuff that happens after the episode you're about to watch. Like the episode is just providing context for what you
based on what you saw
last episode.
Yeah, because you saw the things that happen after the fact. But yeah, like the mouse.
So the nonlinear nature of the story is actually why I didn't feel the need to rewatch it, because it is so perfect for rewatches that I have gone back many times over the years and just been like, oh, I want to watch this specific episode of Baccano. Like, there are very few anime I go back and rewatch at all, let alone with any regularity. But Baccano is one of the ones where I was telling you guys the other day, oh yeah, I just played episodes 1 and 2 back in my head the other night when I was, laying down to sleep, because I remember them beat for beat. There are so many people I've introduced Baccano to over the years because it is truly one of the all-time greats. Like, this is why I like it, to be clear, is because or rather, we've talked about why I like it, but why it has this kinetic pace. It feels like jazz. Every scene feels like a little bit of an improv. Like, it feels like every scene could end slightly differently than you expect, and a lot of times they do. Even though theoretically a lot of the endings, there's still that drama in each scene because the writing is so tight and all the characters are so good. Like, we could spend 2 hours talking about the show, never talk about Jacuzzi's plot, and it'd be a problem. But like, you can just have that happen, because there are so many little things to dig into for each element of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other just amazing thing is how they'll bring in different fantastic characters for like one arc, or one arc within the story. Like Jacuzzi and Nice are just such a great power couple.
Yep.
B, their gang I love their gang, right?
Yeah.
I love gang. Their their whole story about the war they're waging on the mafia, essentially. But like, they're not really relevant to the any of the prior plots.
They become relevant later if you read the light novel, but that's later.
Yeah, they're all everybody's relevant moving forward, right? But it just, it weaves in these characters you've never met before, and that creates enough, or who don't appear in the other stories that are being woven together that are in the future, and that creates enough uncertainty over who's going to live and who's going to die, that it can maintain that tension.
Honestly,
of like,
I feel like it's less of a question with Baccano who's going to live and who's going to die, especially because once you're introduced to immortals, that kind of changes the aspect. What I found a lot more interesting was not who is going to die, but how they end up in certain places. So we're introduced to Lad Russo, who's a wonderful character. We're introduced to him after his story is basically done. He is lying on the side of the train tracks with his fiance,
waving his stump of an arm around.
But that's even before then, because you don't even see that. That's the last shot of that scene. And then you're like, whoa, what the heck happened to him? And you don't find out what happened to him for like another 7 or 8 episodes. And that's the thing that I love about it, because like, you can't do this with characters that aren't good. Solo leveling could not do this because its characters are not good.
Never in a million years.
You cannot have an introduction to a character be so great that you just watched his ending and yet you still want to know how he got there.
Yeah, it shows you his ending, and then it shows you like the start of his story, which is equally insane.
Yeah.
Like, he busts into his uncle's office, who's a mafia don, and he's just like, say, uncle, me and my friends, we're going to go rob this train, see? And he's like, you're crazy, lad. And he's like,
yes.
You know what I hate? More than anything, I hate people who think that they're safe. Points a gun directly in his face. just like
And the whole reason in that scene that it's implied he doesn't shoot his uncle is because his uncle actually does not think he's safe at all. And that's the only reason why he doesn't kill him. I love Lad Russo.
Yeah, because he successfully scared him.
And that's the thing. Okay, so we're gonna get into this, and I'm gonna say we're gonna have to be in spoiler section now because we're gonna get into some other characters.
I mean, what I love about you can't unpack Baccano without immediately spoiling something.
Going into spoilers. So what I like, especially about the killers within Baccano, because there are a few, and they're not cookie cutters at all. They're all very different. Is I love how all of them kill for different reasons, and they all make sense. It's like you may not agree with them, obviously, because they're killers, and we're hopefully not. But I like just how easily they can be explained in such a way that, no, that makes sense. Lad Russo loves killing. And he will kill indiscriminately, but the thing that he does love the most, as Geoff mentioned, was he loves killing people that think that they won't be. He loves running into somebody who thinks that they're so pompous and they're so important and they live in their own world that they are not afraid of death. And then Lad's like, "You sure?" Bang! And just calls it a day.
Like the perfect superhero villain for a bunch of immortal characters.
Yeah.
His greatest joy in life is that look of surprise.
Which like if I was to say that there was any one scene that I wish Baccano had, I would have just loved a one moment scene where at some point, either near the end or maybe when he's getting thrown off the train, he sees Cheslaw after having blown Cheslaw's head off because Cheslaw's not dead. Yeah. And then he's like, what? That would have been amazing. That was one interaction I wanted to see again, but I mean, that would be distracting because like Lad gets it in his head very quickly. There are certain people he absolutely wants to kill. And that would immediately jump Cheslaw up to like the top of his list if he saw Cheslaw again.
Yeah. There would be like a whole plot about him like tearing Cheslaw apart like piece by piece,
which is boring at that
point. And we already have that twice over, arguably.
Twice,
yeah. We don't need that.
We don't need that.
I love Lad's fiance.
Lua? She's great.
The girl who just like absolutely wants him to kill her, but also doesn't doesn't think that he will. It's just such an
I mean, to Tristan's point, there are so many psychotic characters in this series, and normally those are the most grating characters to watch on the screen for me because they're usually over or underwritten, and they usually don't resonate.
I'm the Joker, baby!
Let me throw this car into the air and dismantle it with my giant-ass wrench.
It feels very like try-hardy or edgelordy to have a bunch of characters who are so psychotic. But it works in this particular context, and it works, I think, partially because of the setting, and it works partially because of the immortality subplot. But I think it mostly works because, again, the characters are not tropes. They are just very quickly, immediately fleshed out and likable and interesting and compelling and meaningful.
And it also works because it's a mafia story, right? And you need some psychos in the mafia. But like, Claire is such an interesting counterpoint to Lad, right? Because Claire doesn't enjoy killing at all, but he's so goddamn good at it.
Yeah.
Well, he likes being good at it. He really enjoys he enjoys the craft, but not necessarily
the act.
He enjoys combat. He doesn't enjoy killing people. He takes no joy in the ending of a life, but he sure does enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Gotta stay lumber.
And you compare that to Shanae, who's mostly a killer by circumstance, right?
Yeah. She was trained to be.
She just has to kill for her family.
I mean, she's probably the most stereotypical, archetypal type out of almost any character. Half because, they made it so that she doesn't talk. So she doesn't get a lot of chances to showcase her own personality. She has one. It's just a lot harder to get there. Because, how many times have you seen the the mute, barely talking girl that was trained to be an assassin. I've got like at least 5 shows I could pull off the shelf behind me that have the exact same character archetype to it. But like there's the extra element when it comes to her dad and how that fits into things that kind of changes things to a different level. And then her relationship with Claire is great. I love it.
So I mean, her relationship with Claire is fantastic, and also the cult, right? The cult really informs a lot of that because she is the only person who like actually like has like a real relationship with Huey.
Yeah.
And like knows him as a person, and you know isn't like fully in that, like hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid.
Well, she hasn't drunk the Kool-Aid necessarily, but that's because like she doesn't need to. So everybody else has drunk the Kool-Aid because
she loves her dad.
Yeah, because it's her dad. That's the thing. Everybody else has drunk the Kool-Aid because they think that her dad is this great religious being of super awesomeness, and technically he is because he's an immortal. But like she works differently at it because she's going at it from a family perspective rather than this kind of zealot-like religious devotion.
Her being that like quiet and contained and just dedicated to doing stuff for her dad because she loves her dad, in contrast to the whole crazy cult that she's part of, is what I think part of what makes her so interesting. I mean, like everybody's a little psychotic to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
Like all of the mafioso, even Firo, who's main character-ish, is like, you know, he's a good guy, right? He's upstanding, right?
Yeah.
But he's surrounded by like, you know,
crazy.
Luck
he's psychotic by smiling through all of this stuff.
Yeah. So like the Gandors are all different types of bruisers, essentially.
Yeah.
And Firo is this just Cromartie High School. When you see a rabbit among a pack of lions, you think to yourself, that's one badass rabbit.
Yeah.
That's kind of Firo's thing. And then I guess the last sort of like killer dynamic would be like Ennis, who comes off as an emotionless killer at first, but then you like unpack it and she's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And then Zillard,
pragmatic.
Yeah, he's
pragmatic, but I also feel like he's the most kill happy in that section of the story, at least.
He's evil.
Well, he's
like a bad guy.
He's evil.
Yeah.
He's the entire Illuminati as one guy.
But he has an Illuminati with him too, to be fair.
Yeah, because like Huey
in the wait.
Huey's got the cult, but Zillard actually, you know, he's working on the recipe.
To bring in a reference that the show does, because the show elsewise does make an Arabian Nights reference. Zillard, I felt like was very much the Jafar of the whole immortal thing, because it's like he's given some of the powers, but he wants all of it. He wants literally everything. And he'll kill anyone he can get his hands on in order to literally get his hands on to do it.
I mean, it's so interesting because all of the other immortals kind of just want to live their lives, right? And Zillard wants power. He wants
wants the ability to make other immortals like properly.
Well, I mean, he wants that so that he can control everything, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got his hooks in politicians and business leaders. Like he's, you know, like his little club are some of the richest and most influential people in America. And he wants to use them, right? He wants to be the puppet master. Jafar is kind of the perfect example, except Zillard doesn't want to sit on the throne. Zillard wants...
He's smart enough to know that the throne's a very dangerous place to be.
Zillard wants to be the Patriots.
Is he not just the Patriots?
He wants to be the Lolly Lule Lo. He wants to control every president, is kind of he wants to be Skull and Bones. You know, he wants total control from the shadows. through offering the most wealthy and influential people immortality. And I mean, being the only guy with the knowledge of how to kill them, right? That's important. He's not going to tell them how to do the hand trick.
I mean, he did.
Eventually.
I mean, they were all there when Dallas and his gang showed up. Like, they were all there for it. They got pissed off that he used the imperfect serum on them. Like,
he didn't tell them. He showed them, and they might have figured it out. But, like, he didn't tell them that they could all do that.
Well, here's the thing.
And I don't think he ever would.
Fun fact. Actually, the show does not explain whether or not anybody with the imperfect serum can do that. Because they never show anybody with the imperfect serum actually performing that aspect of it. So they might not be able to.
I doubt they're able to. Because if they could, then what they would do is it would probably work out that if you had the imperfect serum and you sloop up someone who with the perfect serum, then you could probably stop aging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a little disappointed, Tristan. Neither of us, when Geoff said the lalu lely low, neither of us went the lalu lely low.
It's lolly lule low.
Lolly lule.
This is why I didn't do it. I've been sitting here trying to think what's the order?
Yeah. Like he's such a fascinating villain, I think, because he's got like these grand schemes, and we only really see like a tiny sliver of what he's been plotting, right? Like we see the grand culmination of his plans get completely bunned up by this kind of idiot fail son of...
Well, that's kind of the thing that I really like, because the show takes place over 13 episodes. They're about 20, 25-minute episodes each. But really, the show shows you 4 nights, essentially. Because each arc is basically a day. That's it. Because it's just like, here's the one day that takes place in New York. Here's the like one night over on the Flying Pussyfoot. Here's like technically, I think the Dallas Generard search with Eve is a couple of days, but like we only really witness a couple of it, and the rest of it is just sort of time skipped. And then we see the one night aboard the boat in the 1700s. Like, it is technically not a lot of time. Like, if you actually think in your head and you go through, what does Salazar do? Not out of the, like, ignoring the 1700s, like just in the main arc, it's like, it's just the one night.
Time.
He goes to the one meeting. The Generard guys show up, they send them on their way, and then he follows them, and then everything happens at the club. And then that's it. That's the end of that story.
But that's also like the richness of this story, which is that there's actually not that much textually that happens, but it implies a lot. And also the world building is such that it feels like there is an entire world of context between everything that is known and written and known to the characters, most importantly.
Yeah.
And they are all operating as though they are all the main characters of their own novel. And that's something that is so beautiful. And we can get to main characters in a second, Tristan. But that's something that's so beautiful about Baccano, is that world building is so... every episode feels like that it's been fleshed out completely, and we're only seeing this moment. And it's almost nice that there's no sequel for that reason, because we know that there's more source material out there, but all of that informs what we see in these 13, 16 episodes.
There is more material that's even in the show. So before we get to the main character talk, which we absolutely need to do before it gets far too late, the first time we see Isaac and Miria, Isaac gets its ears sliced off. This is an event that occurs after the show. Despite it being the intro for Isaac and Miria, his ear gets sliced off by a character who's in the show. They don't name her because she's not relevant to any of the plots of this part of Baccano, but she's relevant to the next arc, despite being in the first episode. That's like freaking tragedy that we don't have a sequel to Baccano, and I hate it.
That little sequel tease is painful. We also, I mean, there's the ending of Isaac and Miria's story, which is such a great little moment in 2001 New York City, and they're like, "Hey, we've been alive a while, huh?"
Nothing weird about that.
And then they kind of freak out a little bit. It's like, yeah, it's been 70 years. And then they go
back to planning a very stupid robbery again.
Yeah, why not? When you need money, steal from the mafia.
But the really brilliant thing.
There are many really brilliant things.
I wonder if Isaac and Miria were involved in 9/11.
Okay, so
are we 3 for 3 for 9/11 references on this show
God.
now?
We I think so.
Geoff,
I just before we move on to the main characters, the one thing I kind of want to say about everything that's implied to happen outside of the main story.
Mm-hmm.
Baccano, the nonlinear structure trains you to be thinking about that stuff and connecting dots and like creating connections that aren't necessarily explained within the story. And I think that's one of the really brilliant things about it is because it shows you these little bits and pieces, it really teaches you to think in scenes, but then also think about how they all connect and the like spider web of connections and how each character's perspective on the scenes shifts things. That's why I think the Flying Pussyfoot's kind of my favorite story, because like we see these same events from so many different angles.
The Pussyfoot arc is the one that actually shows us the same scene again multiple times. If only for, hey, by the way, here's the start of the scene. You saw it end previously, but now we're going to go this way with this character. And it's like, here's the context for that. And it's very useful.
We get the like Claire's perspective on the violence starting, which is, really just great. That guy thinks he's got the one up on him, and we think he's got the one up on him for an episode or two. But then like when the violence breaks out, we see Jacuzzi being like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we got to help these people, guys, because he's he might be more main character-ish than Firo, in that he just inserts himself into.
So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to go through the three of us, and I wanted to be like, all right, who do you think the main character of Baccano is and why? And none of the cheap, nobody's the main character. No, we're going to be like, no, if you had to pick.
If that's the answer, that's fine, dude.
Yeah. So it is kind of.
Are you leaning towards Jacuzzi in general, or are you just bringing that up as that it's a possibility?
I mean, I'm saying that in terms of personality, he is even more main character-ish than Firo.
The show signals out Firo as main character-ish in episode 1.
In episode 1, it does,
yeah.
Like Jacuzzi is the type of guy who just throws himself into situations he knows nothing about to save people's lives because he has like a sense of duty. And that like his entire bootlegging operation is in essence an attempt to take down the mafia.
Yeah.
Because he sees bad things happening and he wants to fix them and I mean, but then Firo is very main character-ish, and it is pointed out. We don't have in our character sheets the name of the reporters, and it's kind of
Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel, and
this is why it's good to have rewatched the show in the last 2 days.
It is, and Gustave Saint Germain.
Yeah,
I did not get 23 points there, but that's a fantastic framing device because it encourages you to like think about, okay, who's a main character, and like she picks Firo because he is main character-ish. But he's not necessarily the main character. He's just the most obvious kind of anchor point.
So what would you say then, Miles? Because we haven't got you've been pretty quiet on this so far.
Isaac and Miria.
Isaac and Miria is kind of the answer I would land on.
They're the through line between every storyline. They're the only ones who interact with most characters, if not all characters.
They interact with basically everyone. Actually,
almost everyone.
I'm trying to think of who they don't interact with.
Newspaper people.
No, they interact with Rachel. They've interacted with Rachel.
No, Rachel, but not the other newspaper people.
Not the other ones, yeah.
I will say, I think this was before the dub even came out. I was in a Fanime, my local anime convention here in the Bay Area, hosts a masquerade every year. The masquerade, sometimes there's cosplay, sometimes there's skits. I was in the Baccano skit in 2009 or 2010, where I was Isaac for our group. We had that little great literal fourth wall breaking skit, which is so good for Baccano that we like broke the fourth wall. And like, because Baccano is very fast and loose with the fourth wall in a way that feels respectful to the medium. But it was Just a fun little Miles trivia for you there.
So I actually think, going back through it, I actually think there is one main character who Isaac and Miria don't really deal that much with, and that's Chane. I don't really feel like they interact with Chane on the train at all, and they don't interact with her once they get to New York. Chane's like one of the only ones.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're like, oh, Claire, you've got a girlfriend now. We're so happy for you. And they probably will get up in her business off screen.
They will eventually, because like she's going to get in with Claire, and Claire is tied into the Gandors and Firo and Ennis. So it probably will happen eventually. But like just within this story, they don't have a lot of interaction with her. But that's kind of it.
So I would say, so like they do have the most interactions with all the other characters.
Yes.
But if you look at Isaac and Miria as the protagonists of Baccano, it very much becomes Rosencrantz and Guildenstern will never die.
Yes. Because they are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Did you just come up with that? Just come up with that? That's
Bravo.
good. That's very good.
It's you know, they're the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the story.
They are.
And in an existential story like this, where everyone has the agency except for them not having agency is why they are the main characters. Because they are the only ones who are not pushing the plot forward, and by so doing, they are the black hole at the center of Baccano.
There is one time that they do sort of push the plot, and that's when they rescue Ches.
But that's... okay.
When they rescue Ches, but also, I mean... you know, they kind of are indirectly responsible for Ennis and Firo ending up together. They inadvertently push push things not intentionally, never intentionally.
No.
But they're always pushing things. God, I would love to see Lad Russo try to murder them. That would have been an entertaining scene.
I love the Looney Tunes.
That would become like Yosemite Sam and Bugs Bunny.
Mm-hmm. Actually,
but yeah,
bringing that up, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think Isaac and Miria really interact with Lad either.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Don't they?
No, because they interact with the other white suited guy that shows up in the dining car, but that's before Lad shows up. They're out of there by the time Lad shows up. They probably saw him as they're flying through the air with Ches, but I mean, even then, I feel like Lad was off the train by that point.
I mean, but they also, I think their interactions with Ches are kind of them interacting indirectly with Lad.
Mm-hmm.
No, because when they pick up Ches, that was after Ches was with Claire. That was the Ches Claire thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, it's the senator's daughter and Ches. They're kind of like they're being like so they're being kind of older brother and sister figures to them and trying to cheer them up and calm them down through it, even as they're planning a train robbery that they really don't have any idea what they're even gonna do.
But Isaac, didn't we already do the robbery, and now that we're escaping? Right you are, Miria.
So you guys keep doing the dub voices so well, and I love it. And so, okay, just to be clear about earlier, the dub is great. I love the dub. And when I rewatched episodes just before this, I watched half of them in the dub, and the dub is still delightful.
Yes,
I still like the original voices, but I think that's just because that's what I got obsessed with it for. And also, it's literally an all-star cast in both languages, so it's hard to not love both versions of it.
I mean, I would still argue it's one of the greatest dubs of all time, but it is an amazing
I will say one of.
Too.
I'm fine with putting it like in a top 5, top 10 situation. You just came out of the gate with greatest, and I'm like, probably not. I don't know if I would
personally put it number one. I would personally put it number one over Bebop, over basically everything. And Bebop's really good. But I to me, I think the authenticity of the dialogue and the accents aren't always perfect, but the like authenticity of the slang and the way that it pulls it into the period is just, it's an amazing dub.
On that point, though, the authenticity, one thing I had been, like I said earlier, I was really obsessed with gangster movies and stuff like that. I watched a lot of like the 1930s and 40s gangster movies from the, pre-Hays Code stuff even, and really enjoyed that as a young boy. And this movie feels inspired by that era in the same way of like all those like pulpy serials and, Robert, like just the black and white gangster movies of the past, in the same way that Chainsaw Man feels very Tarantino era inspired. Like, this is obviously Tarantino inspired too. Like, you would not get a lot of this blood and violence without just an obsession with Tarantino and things that were obsessed with directors that were obsessed with Tarantino in the 90s.
Like Reservoir Dogs. It's kind of, a lot of it's Reservoir Dogs. There's a lot of Reservoir Dogs.
There's a lot.
Even more than Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, way more. But this is such a great synthesis of Japanese storytelling and that style of American storytelling in a way that this is one of the few anime I've seen where American characters feel almost American.
Almost.
Still not quite. There's still like veneer of like, oh, this is how a Japanese storyteller would perceive these events to be happening. But I really like how it gets closer than anything else.
Yeah, because there's
a little bit of a Yakuza filter on the Mafia.
Yeah, there are times that the Mafia does feel more Yakuza-ish than it does, but
I mean, that's part of the charm, I think. And okay, so I wanna circle back to the main character thing, because there's so many facets to that, right?
Okay.
So like one that I would float as like a very important perspective character would be Misa.
I would say that Misa is not the main character. Misa is more of the Gandalf. He is
he's
knowledgeable,
the most important supporting character.
Yes. He is extremely important for what he knows and what he did in the past, like going back to the 1700s. But like, I could not put Misa in the main character slot for the same reason I would never put Gandalf in the main character slot.
But Geoff, is it not just because Troy Baker is voicing him that you just immediately think he's the main character?
A little bit, yeah. A little, absolutely.
Like how also, I mean, just side tangent here, how often does Troy Baker do anime dubs at all? Like, that's just hilarious to me.
Yeah, it really is all-star, right?
It is.
Part of that's the era that it was made in, right?
Yeah, because
like
it was peak Funimation dub time. When it came out, like
they're firing on all their engines. Everyone there was obsessed with anime, pretty much. Like, this was like a passion project for literally everyone who worked on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you can feel that in the bones of that dub.
Yeah.
So one other thing one other main character I want to float, which is one that is called out but not called out by the anime. Notice how she never said that he could be the main character. Dallas.
I mean, saying Dallas,
because it that's the only other character who's directly called out by the anime.
I mean, he could be a main character, kind of like in the way of. I could see him being a main character, like if the story was named after him. He's like those narratives that are just like, yeah, we're gonna call this narrative after this character or this thing, despite him not being the POV at all.
Here's the thing: isn't the story named after him? It's called Baccano, which is Italian for a bunch of noise, a ruckus, and
Dallas to showcase that.
like. Obviously, he doesn't cause the immortals to come into being, right? So you could argue that it's that somebody on the Advena RVs is a character. He causes all of the immortals in New York to come into being.
That, yes.
He is him being a dipshit directly contributes to the entire plot of all of the stories happening. Even the flying pussyfoot stuff is, in a sense, a reaction to and continuation of all of the stuff that he set in motion in New York.
I mean, okay, well, here's the other thing. I was about to fully agree with because his fault for the New York thing, but I would actually say it's not, actually.
No, well, so okay.
The two characters that are more important for setting up everything that happened in New York is Randy and Pecho. because they
Randy
set the fire.
And Techo. They do set the fire,
and I mean they're important enough to have their names in an episode title. So like
they send the alchemist out of his lab, right?
Yeah, which is
but
like
Dallas,
if they didn't do that, then he would have stayed there until he got picked up by Ennis.
That's an accident. Dallas is the one who makes a conscious choice. I mean, I guess you could say he made a conscious choice to light his hand on fire like a dumbass. No, Dallas makes a conscious choice to rob a random old man just because he feels like it. And that from that choice, everything that happens spirals out, including, you could argue that what happens on the Flying Pussyfoot, Ladd's involvement's kind of a wild card, but the ghosts being involved there and the U.S. government coming after Huey is probably a bunch of rich people who were expecting to get immortal with the help of Zillard, going after the only other known path to immortality.
Wouldn't that make Zillard the main character, to see such a crux of everything?
Zillard is the villain. Zillard is the central villain of the story. Zillard is, if we ever
Can we
saw
take a break? I have to run to the bathroom really badly. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm really sorry, guys.
All right. Try and hold your thought.
My neck is too cracky to do that anymore.
You're not turtly enough for the Turtle Club?
Oh God, don't. Oh, why would you bring back Master of Disguise, Tristan?
Because it's absolute garbage. That's why.
Oh man.
Psychic damage.
I
haven't thought about.
I didn't even. So sorry. I was swerving on camera. I could not. That was a problem. Zillard is the villain, and also, have you ever heard the 9/11 story about Master of Disguise?
No, let's not.
No, we need to hear this now. This is becoming part of the podcast.
What? How we reference 9/11 every episode? My God.
No, the 9/11 story of. I need to know how Master of Disguise connects to 9/11.
So 9/11 happened while they were filming the turtle scene.
Like while they were filming it?
While they were filming it. And so Dana Carvey in costume led the staff and crew in a prayer.
Turtle. Never forget, turtle.
Okay, anyway.
Clearly you're not American. Goodness.
I mean, yeah, he's the villain. If we saw it from his perspective, then I think, you could make a case that he's kind of a Thanos-style protagonist of the story. In the same way that Thanos' perspective is used to frame Endgame of Avengers, but he's just kind of the antagonist, right? He's the. I mean, he still kind of has echoes, right? Because Cheslaw not trusting other immortals is like that's directly down to Zillard's being a piece of crap.
Yeah.
Everything that happened on the Advena Vis is, connected to him being a piece of crap.
Well, I mean, Cheslaw's mom, relation, friend, them,
older sister,
questionable. It's their relation. That is like Cheslaw's whole thing. His broken bag of bones and rebuilt bag of bones. And I just feel bad for Ches because he's immortal, but he's a kid. And they make it very clear that he is not a kid in that, eventually he's just like a normal person in a kid's body. He's not like a character whose name I don't remember from Bebop, who has the body of a kid and is immortal forever. No, he's very much still a kid. Like, yeah, he has memories of the last 200 years, but he constantly acts as a child, and it's not an act most of the time.
Yeah, he will never go through puberty.
Yeah, like both physical and emotionally, he won't. So he still acts like a child, even at the end, and it's like instinctive for him because that's what his body wants to do. Yeah, it's just very sad for him because like he didn't really have a choice in the matter at the time because it's like he was a kid on that boat and he drank the Kool-Aid like everybody else and he's immortal now. So, whoops.
Yeah, he's kind of got like a different problem from all the other immortals where like, you know, most of them will eventually watch their friends die. That's kind of what Mizo was expecting to happen until inadvertently all of his mafia pals ended up being immortal too.
Oops.
Just kind of right place, right time for him.
Yeah.
Ches has to watch like everybody he knows and loves like grow up without him, which is messed up on a lot of levels. And you know,
yeah, he has the lot harder time blending in as well because like you can go through like the Highlander route of how does an immortal deal with being so long lived within society, and the general path is, hey, you pretend to be said person for like 25, 30 years and then you leave and you may come back again in another few decades as like a descendant of yourself or what have you, but you have that period of time where if you look like in your mid to late 20s, you can probably get away with staying as that persona or that person for about 20 some odd years. And then you really need to start considering bailing out before people ask why you keep not aging.
Yeah.
But like Ches, he's stuck. He's a child. And within 5 years, people are going to ask, hey, why aren't you getting older? It's a lot more noticeable for him. And he's got to deal with that.
Yeah. He's got to, at the very least, explain that he's like a guy with a genetic abnormality.
Yeah, that's like the best, but then you got to be careful because he can't use that story all the time. Otherwise, he's a lot easier to track.
Or be like, yeah, he could be like, pretend to be someone's kid, like get adopted.
Yeah.
Like sneak into an orphanage. But, you know, I mean, I guess that would have worked through most of early America because, you know, Social Security tracking for kids wasn't great back then.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he's in a very interesting predicament.
So, gentlemen.
Yes.
Where does this land on our list? I know on our tentative list, the rough drafts we just kind of put together in a night last year.
Yeah.
It was the pluralistic favorite TV anime, I think, between the bunch of us, because it's in both mine and Geoff's top 5, and Tristan likes it a lot, too.
I do like it a lot. I wouldn't have put it in the top 5 or top 10, but, like, it needs to be on the list.
I might put it at least top 15, you know, like, let me think. I, like, right now, I would say top 10. Maybe top 5, I don't know.
Once you add in movies, I don't think it's top 5.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, this is the anime that's been in my personal top 10 the longest.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the question of, are we going to rank movies separately, or do we rank them as part of series? I don't know.
That's another discussion for another day, I think.
You know, that's
we haven't
fully
we haven't fully nailed this down. We're flying by the seat of our pants here.
We're on the quest.
But like,
we're on quest.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're
doing.
Yeah,
Baccano's been in my top 10 since I've had a top 10, right? And almost everything else has like shuffled out over time. Like Beck was in my top 10 for a really long time, and now it's not.
Beck will never be in my top 10. Never has.
I actually recently rotated Yu Yu Hakusho back in.
Fair.
Because I was trying to think on like what's my favorite shonen of all time, because I got to represent a shonen in there, you know. But like Baccano has just never left, right? And it when I was a teenager, it was like my like with you, Miles, it was one of my go-to show my friends. It's the perfect anime night anime. Mm-hmm. It's the perfect, you know, like if you're having a sleepover and you want to put something cool on, Baccano rips.
And I mean, it can be watched in a night, technically.
Yeah. Or, you know, you can pick up any episode, like you were saying, and just enjoy it in a vacuum, and it's good. But like the complete story's also masterful. And even though it you know, there's so much more story that could have been told, and there's a few little hints of like more story to come. It's very self-contained, right? You get the mystery of how the immortals became immortal, the mystery of what happened to Dallas Genoward, which kind of ties into that. And I mean,
we don't get the answer to that mystery.
No, he's in a barrel.
No, he's not.
Do
you not remember the end?
He's sleeping with the fishes.
No, when they pull him up. Because at the end of the show, Eve finally gets the Gandors to admit, yeah, no, by the way, we put him in a barrel with a bunch of concrete and we dossed him into the Hudson. And then she's like, can we go get him? And then there's the other mob guy that's like, yeah, I would love to take him and experiment on him if you're okay with that. And she's like, well, I don't really have a choice, but as long as I get to visit him, that's fine. And then they pull him up from the Hudson and they show the barrels that he was in, and the barrels are empty. That's the end of the show, remember?
Yeah,
we don't know.
So I guess we don't.
Like, I know because I read the light novel. But like
I gotta read the light novel.
The show gives us this whole thing of where is Dallas Genoward? And you think that that he just got left at the bottom of the water because in the opening they show that for the longest time. Because they don't care.
You're right. We get the where was Dallas Genoward?
Where was
for
Dallas
at least
Genoward?
a year.
Yeah.
But,
so we know that he was there at some point in time. He was in those barrels at the bottom of the Hudson, but we don't know who pulled him out or whether or not he got out on his own.
Which, I mean, does really lend credence to the idea that he is the main character of like the overarching story of Baccano.
I mean, I kind of wish that he had a more direct tie to the Pussyfoot arc, but
yeah, which is to me the heart of Baccano, which is why I would never consider him the main character.
I mean, it's the heart of the main story, but he does indirectly kick the whole thing off, right?
Sure, but
him being in a barrel does kind of, and yeah, you're right. Flying Pussyfoot is the heart of the first of the only season of Baccano. Man, I wish there was another season.
That would have been great.
Even without it, it's such a perfect slice of television.
Well,
right?
that's because it was designed that way. Like, this is why, like, despite the fact that Graham Spector is in the OVA in the final 3 episodes, I really do feel like from a narrative completion, 13 episodes has you done. Because, like 14, 15, 16, the OVA is a lot more like a weird epilogue that arguably we didn't need. And if anything, just makes you wish that there was more, even more than you already did.
It speaks to the writing quality, just that you could feel like any additional story they could tell, any continuation would still feel thematically resonant with everything else that's come before. Mm-hmm. And a season 2 would be fine, but also even those tease of 3 episodes, they still work, make the first 13 episodes that much richer.
Yeah. And I mean, the main reason why I don't think a season 2 would work very well is because one of the reasons that we've been talking about that we really like the show is just how it showcases the narrative and it keeps jumping through everything. The light novel doesn't do that. The light novel is very linear by comparison.
Well, so here's the thing. This is kind of the nega memento, and I wanted to talk about this earlier, but as we're finishing up, I do want to talk about it.
Okay.
The Chris Nolan movie Memento is basically every scene is in reverse order.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Great movie.
And if you watch a cut of it in order, it feels really simple and straightforward and honestly not that interesting.
No.
Right? It is the structure. The structure is the movie. With Baccano, even if you paced it normally, like if you did it chronologically, it would still kick ass. It would still be so much fun. It would lose something, but it wouldn't be, it would still be masterpiece level to me.
Mm.
I agree 100%. That like if you were to just tell these 3 stories back to back, they would still be all very solid and interesting. I mean, especially the Flying Pussyfoot. I mean, it takes it to another level. The structure takes it to another level, and it's I would say one of the most brilliantly written anime adaptations out there. Maybe the most. I get hyperbolic like that, but it's.
Well, no. What's a better anime adaptation? That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Like maybe it is top 5. Maybe it is. Like for what we've talked about so far.
I mean, yes, so far. I do feel like there are plenty of other really great adaptations we're going to get to.
I mean, there are, but like that are this transformative in how they're written and directed, right? Like if we're talking about like really deconstructing a really great story and making it better in a way that you can only do in a 13 episode self-contained season of television, right? Like, I mean, even that 3 episode OVA, it's good, but it does feel like it's missing something because there's that very short period of time in which to play with time, right? You know, like
I mean, there are only so many characters that we actually follow in those episodes because we're basically following Jacuzzi's gang. We don't really spend a lot of time with Firo and them at all. Yeah, they play with Dominoes for a couple of minutes, but that's kind of it for them. It is mostly hey, what's Jacuzzi and them doing? Which, again, is the freaking annoying part because it sets up the next arc, which is a very big Jacuzzi Splot arc.
But also, we needed more of them in the main show. Like, if I had a complaint about the 13 episodes, it's that Jacuzzi doesn't get a bit
not
more.
enough Jacuzzi and Nice. Yeah. And it really scratches that itch. The OVA really scratches that itch. It's just like, it's just not as satisfying by itself, you know, like it does not make up for the lack of a new season in any respect. But it's you know, like that the self-contained 13 episodes of the main show are so it's perfect television, right? There's no other way to say it. It's just like every episode is a self-contained, super engaging story, but every like the complete story is also just enrapturing, and you need to know what's next on Baccano. What's next on Baccano?
I love that. I love that at the end of every episode. It's greater than the sum of its parts. I mean, you're kind of saying that already, but I really do think that it does, even though it is so brilliant in a moment-to-moment basis, even though you can rewatch any episode at any time in any order, it is so much greater than the sum of its parts. And yeah, Tristan, I probably should just rewatch the whole show, start to finish, because I love it so much, and I'm probably going to anyway now after this call.
Yeah, because now you got the itch.
You know, the studio was firing on all cylinders. The composer was firing on all cylinders. The direction is so good. I mean, you know,
it needs to be if you're jumping around that much.
But I mean, like, Takahiro Omori is like very underrated director, especially since, you know, even to me, because I haven't watched that much of Natsume's Book of Friends and a lot of the other stuff. But like Samurai Flamenco, for example, Sam Flam is like another great example of incredible episode to episode TV storytelling. But like, you know, Baccano is just it's a roller coaster ride, right? And every episode is a mini roller coaster within the greater mega coaster, Mr. Bones' Wild Ride that you're on. It's just,
Tristan, can we talk you into top 5 TV anime at least? Top 10 maybe? Pluralistically, it is our favorite anime between the three of us.
I don't know if I can do 10. If it's 10, it is 10. 10. If it's in 10, it's 10, but I'm like, I have to cut out something, and I don't know if I can.
But I mean, you know, that's your personal 10 is one thing, right? Like we're all gonna have like
because that's the thing is like, because there's a lot of thing within my personal 10 I'm gonna be like dragging into even the top 50 potentially. So yes, like with correct. Our pluralistic 10, yes, I can say it'll be in the pluralistic 10. If for no other reason than it's in both of your personal like top 5s. So
yeah.
Just like through
Love
numbers, it'll be in the 10 somewhere.
Maybe even in 5. Maybe. But we'll have to see.
You love it, Tristan.
I do love it. That's the thing. So I get really caught up with my own personal favorites though, and I really want to fight for them. So, but this is you two fighting for your personal favorites, so I get it. I get it.
I don't think in this case that it's just us fighting for our personal favorites. There is like a very strong case to be made that there's no stronger adaptational script
That's right. What Geoff is saying is objectively, Baccano is one of the best anime of all time. Objectively.
Yeah. Objectively.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And our quest for the best has to be the most objective top 100 anime list of all time. So.
Because I mean, I have a better adaptation in my head, but I can't dig into it because I'm not sure if either of you have finished it yet. So we'll see.
Well, I mean, you can just say it.
It's Naoki Urasawa's Monster.
I mean, I'm like halfway, and I haven't read the manga, so I'll need to finish both of those things.
Yes, you will.
Yeah,
we're getting an episode. Monster's getting an episode. It's in my personal top 10.
Monster's getting an episode for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, Monster, like you can say, Monster's, I mean, a more complete adaptation, and like it's insane.
Well, yes, because it actually completes it.
Quality,
but it's also like a 50 some odd episode anime, so I understand it's going to take some time for us to get to it. But
I mean, yeah, Monster's kind of a different beast, so to speak, right? Because
it's a very different show. We shouldn't get into it now. We're not going to get into it now.
We shouldn't get into it. Like my kind of case for Baccano is how well it unpacks and repackages the story of the light novel to create this like tangle that is, as you said, greater than the sum of its parts. And yeah, it's just, it's to me, it's brilliant. To me, it's absolute cinema. It's.
Thank you for picking it for your first episode.
Yeah. Geoff. Good on you, Geoff.
Hey,
good pick.
Thanks for talking about it with me and talking me out of doing Cyberpunk Edge Runners.
We'll get to Edge Runners, I'm sure.
Which we will have to get to soon.
Don't
say soon.
Thanks for listening, watching, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Next time on Quest for the Best, it's Project ACO.